How did you ever get roped into the 50? Because I don't think anyone really thought of you as a skier. Cody's doing this like incredible project where he's climbing all these pretty burly mountains with like pretty difficult skiing on them. How did you end up in the 50?
This is Climbing Gold. You don't think of me as a 50 classic ski descents kind of guy? I'm hurt, you know? You don't think of me as an all-around mountain athlete?
A little
with
bit,
with
but
my with my PLA door? Come on. Come on. No, yeah, no, so Cody thought of me for skiing Mount Whitney because I had previously bicycled to Mount Whitney with Cedar Wright for Summerfest 1. We did all the 14ers in California. And so I think Cody had maybe seen that film at some point and just when he was thinking about bicycling to Mount Whitney, he was like, "Oh, I should get Alex to bike to Mount Whitney with me." So he reached out about the bike adventure and I was and honestly actually living in Las Vegas is not that far away from there, and so I have friends who have actually done the bike ride from Death Valley to Whitney. It's like a thing that people do occasionally, and
Mhm.
so I'd kind of always thought it'd be cool, and so when he reached out to do it as a ski adventure, it's kind of like, well, that sounds kind of cool. It's too bad there's snow on the mountain, but but it's better than not doing it.
Do you ski?
Oh yeah, I ski poorly. I ski on expeditions. I mean, I've skied across like an un yeah, I mean, I did like the first ski traverse of a glacier in Greenland, and I've like lived on a glacier in Antarctica for a month, uh, and
But
I've been to the Ruth Gorge in Alaska. I
that's
mean, yeah, it's not downhill skiing, but it is
that's not
survival
skiing
skiing.
off. That's not skiing off Whitney though. Whitney is
Yeah,
kind
but
of a little bit more challenging.
well, as it turns out, it was. But no, but in some ways, I think survival skiing suits you for that kind of thing because it's not like I was trying to make elegant turns and like rip it down the mountain. I was just trying to get down and not lose my skis and not get hurt. And I'm like, that's the same as expedition skiing, where you're just trying to get up and down things without getting hurt.
When you climbed it, were you like, oh shit, I have to come down this? Like, was that going, were like the alarm bells going off in your head?
Honestly, they weren't. I knew that I was just gonna like side slip the whole way down. I mean, I wasn't expecting to ski anything basically. Like I can't really ski. I was just gonna make it happen. And of course I could just walk down if I had to. So
Yeah.
it's like no one's judging my skiing. Like I didn't care that much. But I was
Yeah.
kind of like, oh geez. But it's
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I grew up Whitney was kind of a home mountain for me. It was one of the early mountains that I climbed. So it's just cool to have an opportunity to ski it with someone who's a world-class skier
Yeah.
or try
Uh,
to anyway.
yeah. And then what were like the basically like break down the whole mission for me. It's like starting at the lowest point in the US and then going to the summit of the highest point in the lower 48. Like just run through the
Yeah.
through like the adventure you guys were planning.
So the challenge that Cody was scheming was to start in Badwater, which is in Death Valley, which is the lowest point in the U.S., like minus 200 something feet, and then to bicycle from there to the Mount Whitney trailhead, and then climb and ski Mount Whitney. And Mount Whitney is the highest point in the continental U.S., excluding Alaska. And so and you bike over three different mountain ranges basically to get there. So it's like a tremendously big bike ride. And you do, I don't know, I mean, Mount Whitney is 14.5 or something, so it's quite a lot of elevation gain as well. I think the idea is, I think it's just a day if it all goes well. I think you bike to Mount Whitney, you climb up, and I think that part of I mean, so Cody wound up getting heat stroke, but and everyone sort of made fun of the planning, like, what an idiot, you're biking in the middle of the day in the desert in black, like that's stupid. But the thing is that Cody had worked backward from when you'd have good ski conditions on Whitney, which I forget if that was morning or afternoon or whatever, but it was something around when the snow was best,
Yeah.
and then had kind of worked backward with the expected length of the bicycle ride, and then had sort of arrived at what he expected to be the departure time from Badwater. And as it
Hmm.
turns out, that wasn't the best plan. But it made sense at the time though. It was kind of like, oh well, we're gonna get good ski conditions so that we have to start at this time in Badwater. And I was like, cool. I mean, I was just along for the adventure anyways. I don't really know.
Yeah. Um, how quickly did it go off the rails?
I think within the first hour or two, Cody was overheating. I mean, Cody's a skier. I don't think he's used to doing hard cardio in the desert. For me, it wasn't quite as bad because I live in the desert and I'm just used to like full heat. But yeah, I mean, within the first couple hours, I think I started kind of dropping him, and then we got to the first big hill, like the first mountain range that you ascend out of Death Valley, and and then I basically never saw him again. Uh, No, actually, that's not true. He eventually got brought back up to where I'd stopped with the car, and then he actually recovered enough and kind of had a miraculous second wind where we did ride another, I don't know, 50 miles or something across like the next mountain range. And then he had a mechanical with his bike where I think the pedal broke or something, and it was just kind of like, well, I think we're done. So then we
Yeah.
got in the vans and drove the rest of the way to the trailhead, and
And
then
then
did
did he
the
go up on the ski with you?
yeah, so then the next morning we went up to go ski the mountain. We were kind of like, oh, that's fine. We did a big bike ride yesterday. We'll go skiing today. Like that's, it's still a fun adventure. And he made it halfway up the mountain and was just not recovered from his near death heat stroke experience the day before. And so he wound up just sitting in some trees, I think, and listening to podcasts for half the day while the rest of us went and skied the mountain.
That's funny. The
And to be clear, that's because he had skied the mountain the week before, so he'd already done his descent, and he didn't feel like he needed to, and he was totally wrecked, and so it made sense.
yeah. The there's a really cool part in that interview where you guys are both sort of saying like he's like, well, what I think what you do is insane. He's talking about like basically he on the up, he can basically zero it out. He can like get the tank down low because he's just like as soon as I go down, I'm fine. And then you were making the point that basically like you could climb 5'8" hand cracks to the moon. Like there's no way, like that's your sort of comfort zone. Like no matter how pumped you are, you'd be fine on a 5'8" hand crack.
I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out how to get up this thing so I could get back down and enjoy myself.
That's the fundamental thing that makes you a skier and not a climber. Because I generally prefer going up, and then the downhill is like a survival experience.
And he's
Love
like,
5'8", really
yeah.
my sweet spot. That's what I thought was really interesting was him saying that no matter how tired he is, he can always do the descent. Because for me, skiing down the mountain was probably harder than getting to the top of the mountain. It's
Yeah.
like I was definitely way more scared and I probably used more muscle. I was like more gripped. I'm all tense. I'm trying to make turns. I'm like grinding my way down the mountain on the side of my skis. It was terrible. And yeah, I mean, I think that was definitely the hardest part for me. And so to hear him say that that part doesn't even factor into his calculation that the downhill is just whatever. I was like, really? Like, is that even possible? I mean, I really like doing those sort of cross sport things because, Cody and I had never met. But we shared tons of mutual friends. We had tons to talk about and a lot of like overlapping interests, like obviously we both train, but we train in really different ways. And so there's just a lot to talk about. And so I kind of
Mhm.
love doing things like multi-sport things like that, where you meet someone who's really good at what they do and then you spend a bunch of time having an adventure together. And so for me, I was like, what a cool opportunity to meet someone cool and chat about, you know, just sit on a bicycle next to him for hours, like chit-chatting.
Well, he dies.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't expect it to go quite the way it did.